Welcome in, folks. We're 2 weeks into our season, and boy, let me tell you, it's as chaotic as it ever feels. We had just guys dropping like flies. I really hope you had depth going into this year. But if you didn't, you might be pivoting on to 2025. But what we're going to talk about this week on the Fantasy Lowdown is we're going to talk about how to navigate all these early season injuries because, like, you might have gone in with like Christian McCaffrey, Isaiah Pacheco, like Cooper Cup, all of these players, right? And then you have the issues with all the tight ends where it's Trey McBride, Brock Bowers, and nobody else being consistent. I was looking up tight ends, and Jonnu Smith is ninth in expected points per game. And that tells you all you ever need to know about tight end position. But anyways, we're going to dive into all the injuries this week, talk about how to navigate them. I'm going to send out some trades on the air, talk about how I process these trades and with my portfolios and do that. If it's, we'll get into this. So just stay with me as we run the intro. And yeah, I'll join me as we head into week 3, folks. And I am your host, Jesse Moeller, aka J Moeller05. And this week, what we're talking about, it's injuries, man. Injuries are the name of the game of fantasy football. It's always fun until you look at your squad, you're like, oh man, half my squad is on the IR, right? Especially with like Puka Nacua, Cooper Cup, the entire Rams offense, which looks like it's in shambles because their offensive line also is a ghost of itself. Where you have these teams you're really excited about, where you might have had a Kyron Williams who we've used top five back, and now you're lucky if he's top 15, even with the volume, just how bad that offense is expected to be. So overall this week, this is kind of what I wanted to focus on, how I'm personally navigating these injuries to kind of give you guys an idea of how I play the process game with my portfolio on some of these teams that are barely hanging on by a thread, where I have one of my rosters in particular in one of my home leagues where we just don't have enough depth, enough draft capital. And that one I am just like hanging on by a thread where it's about time we pull the ripcord on it. But the thing is, there's so many bad teams in that league already that they've done this year's out ahead. So there's not really much draft capital to get from those teams. So it makes it a really interesting discussion with those teams. But let's hop into this. What I'm using to like manage all of my leagues is Dynasty Daddy. It's one of my favorite websites. It's also free. So like those of you that don't like paying a subscription, hey, guess what? This website is free. So let's hop into this really quick. So all you have to do is go to Dynasty Daddy, and you pop it up right here. I'll show you right here. So this is the website right here. This is how you go to your fantasy portfolio. If you're curious, you just go to log into leagues. You type in your username. If it's sleeper, you can go through all these. You can go my fantasy league. You go to Patreon. You go to Yahoo, ESPN, Flea Flicker. They have maybe even a Fantrax tab, which is new, and they also have FFPC. So wherever your leagues are associated with, right? You just type in your username, hit the sign in button. It's going to tell you all yours. Mine, I have 24 leagues associated with. You have to be careful because if it has some of your redraft leagues, they're going to be on here too. So you need to check your Dynasty portfolio. But I'm going to show you an easy way to check your portfolio to kind of see where your rosters are at. As you can see on the left-hand side here, it has trade calculator, player rankings, start tools, trade database, player comparison. That is a great spot to be. But what I want to do is I want to show you. Give me 1 second. If I get this to pull up. There we are. And we go here. We go fantasy portfolio. So you go there. I have all my dynasties. I can reload portfolio. So if you want to get rid of it, I'll show you how. So you go get portfolio. You connect your leagues. You connect account. You type in your name. I showed this before online, but I'll show it to you guys again. Then we go out, and then we go leagues, and I'm going to deactivate all my redraft leagues because you don't want the redraft. Obviously, you could treat this with redraft as well, but this is a Dynasty show, so we're just going to focus on Dynasty. So we're going to get a few out of there. Give me 1 second as I get through all of these. And yeah, sorry for the delay, but I just want to show you guys how you go about doing this. It's a relatively easy way to do it. So as well, there's that one. And those are the last couple. And there we are, folks. All right. So 14 leagues, you connect accounts, then you connect it and you go get portfolio. It's going to pull it up, and there you are. So it shows you your entire rostership status, your overall value for your rosters. As you can see, over the course of time, it's slowly gone up. Obviously, this, you accrue more rosters and more teams. That's what happens. Now, the important thing is you can go by position. I kind of want to focus on running backs and wide receivers just because those are the heaviest hit. So you start clicking away, selecting. Right here, we have our running backs and wide receivers. Shocker, you see some of my most rostered players. That would be Jordan Mason. That would be Kamani Vidal, Jarrett Patterson. That bet has not paid off. But you'll see how I treat Dynasty. The way I treat is the bottom 5 spots on my roster are just fodder, and I flip through them. So, of course, back in July when Jordan Mason was popping, what did I do? I added a ton of Jordan Mason shares everywhere because he was free, didn't cost anything. Same thing with Kamani Vidal. The guy was going in the 4th round. I made that bet a ton of times. I was very bullish on him. Sometimes I take him in the 3rd round, a little bit early, but that happens. Sometimes these bets pay off, sometimes they don't. Now you're looking at a few of these other guys and you're like, oh, interesting. You're like, I see actionable players. And yes, that is true. There are actionable players out there. Jonathan Brooks. I need to get rid of some of these Derrick Henry shares because we're at 5. That is quite a bit. That's like 30%. So I want to do a few of these Derrick Henry shares and kind of trade them into more injured players. Depending on league size, obviously this is very important. Jonathan Brooks, he was my favorite draft pick. I did like to diversify. Thankfully, I had enough late first picks where Jonathan Brooks kind of fell me in a few spots. He fell me in the 2nd round a few times. But anyways, if we're looking at easy ways to, find certain players and they can tell you the energy designation with Tajay Spears right there, all you got to do is click down. So let's go Derrick Henry right here. Shows you all the leagues. It gives you the settings right here. So as you can see, it's all in Sleeper, all Dynasty. All these leagues are super flex is what it is, baby. You know how we do it. And then you could go by league size, right? You go by 12 team, 10 team, 12 team, 10 team, 12 team. Start 10, all PPR. The interesting one is the Thunderdome. That team, I am the 2-time defending champ. So let's click on that. All right. All you have to do is I'm just going to share this tab instead real quick. And there we are. Make sure we're on there. And as you can see, here's the league settings. The only issue is if you have best ball leagues, they will not show up on your computer. So if you're doing this with best ball leagues, you could do it on your phone. Also, Dynasty Daddy works on your phone. So let's go there. Now, you can see Henry is right there. I have Henry, Alvin Kamara. Somebody was doing a fire sale where they were selling both these guys for mid to late seconds. So I was like, yeah, I'll take them. Sure, why not? So as you can see this roster, we have Debo, who's also injured. I'm going to send out a Debo share on this roster too. So what you want to do with these older contending players, right, is find similar bets with these older guys, particularly with the Henrys of the world or where it's strictly production. And if you're worried about the production, it's an easy way to pivot into guys that are injured. This is going to bring me to Isaiah Pacheco. What we're going to do with this Derrick Henry is we're going to send him out for Isaiah Pacheco and see how this goes. Because the way I treat running backs outside of Bijan, Gibbs, Brees, and Devon Achane, like my top 4 dynasty running backs, I'm just looking for production now because running backs are such a year-to-year bet. With Pacheco being like he's like basically a late day 3 pick, right? He has no assurances in Kansas City. I know there's a pretty dramatic swing in how people view them, but what I want to do is I want to switch these 2 players. So you can look at the trade block right here. Here's the trade block on some of these. This team does not have a QB3, so this gets a really interesting roster. But there's Devontae Adams right there. I could do a 1-for-1 trade. I don't think it's going to happen, but we're going to send that out with Derrick Henry. We're going to see how this goes. I don't think the guy's going to go for it, but we'll shoot the moon. So with Debo, what I want to do is I want to try to move him for a similarly valued player. And you could look through all the rosters right here and you can sort through. This is what we do. But I'm going to do this with Henry, where I'm going to send him for an injured player. If I can find him, where is he? So give me 1 second as we look across the rosters. Sorry, this is not the most organized, but this is what we're doing. You can see everyone's roster. So if you wanted kind of a better understanding of all the teams, you could look under here. I'm actually going to go back to the Fantasy Portfolio and pull up the league because it becomes a lot easier. So I am currently in the Thunderdome. So you go to the Thunderdome. We're going to pull this out right here. And I'll pull up the rankings to show you guys what we're talking about. All right, so here's the trade value of every team in the Thunderdome League. If you want to switch it up, you just go to the top right corner, switch it. Now, we have all the trade value of all the teams. As you see, draft capital is yellow, tight ends are orange. Gosh, tight ends are a wasteland. Wide receivers are red, running backs are dark red, and quarterbacks are purple. Now, we're not really trying to go after quarterbacks. What we're trying to go is we're trying to find contending teams and try to switch players around, like a team that needs a running back, right? So let's look at teams that are really bad running back. Right here, contender, Ezek. So we look at his roster. He's got Brian Robinson, James Conner, Aaron Jones. It's not bad, and then it like falls off a cliff. But he does have a lot of wide receivers. He's got Justin Jefferson, Nico Collins, Keon Coleman. We do that. It could be interesting. What I'm going to actually do with this guy is, I know I've already talked to this guy, FF Yinzer. He has very interesting overall values of how he values these players. I tried to get you from him. No luck with that. I'm going to send Essex a deal where I'm going to try to get Keon Coleman for Derrick Henry. I like the long-term upside bet of Keon Coleman, and I'm honestly a little bit scared of what's going on with Henry. I just think that the season's kind of going to be extremely up or down. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to my sleeper league. We're gonna offer. So let's go find him right here, add, and we're gonna send the offer. So this is what we're doing with this roster. The other guy we're gonna send out is Debo. So I'm gonna send that out in a little bit. Give me 1 second. You could also do a Brian Robinson for Derrick Henry. So we're gonna send this out right now. Just send Derrick Henry for a younger guy who has some concerns, but we make that move and we send it out. So sometimes you have to pay a little tax. There is no injury issue here, so I'm not too worried about the tax. We're just gonna send it off, get a little bit younger, get similar-ish production, see what they think, see if they're still holding on to Henry. This person does want to be a contender, so we'll see. So we'll send that offer out, see how that goes. Now with Debo, it's a little bit interesting. I kind of wanted to go to teams that are not as bullish contenders. As I just sent that deal out. So we made that move. What I want to do is look at wide receivers. Who's kind of struggling at wide receiver? Picos, they trust the process. They're not very good. Right here, Frisky is Scotty Dew. We could send that for Debo. Yeah, his wide receivers are pretty. You could do George Pickens. I don't think they're going to do George Pickens, especially with how that wide receiver room is, but we'll see. Steezy's the other one. So I think the Devo Devontae Adams trade is actually not a bad one because Debo's a little bit more injured and Adams plays in a worse situation, like with his quote unquote, quarterback situation, how bad it is in Vegas. I'm going to try to send Devo out for Devontae Adams. They're both old. I'm not too worried about the age difference in this league. And my team is so top heavy. Back-to-back 2-time champ. We're going on year 3. So I'm going to go make that move. Now, you could also make the move and then do it a different way. Because he's already on the trade block. Let's show this tab instead. So as you see, I'm a sleeper. Devontae Adams right there on the trade block. We're just going to make this move. I'll actually send, where is Devontae? There's Debo. So we have those. So do I have any extra draft picks? So we go here, draft picks. I have 2 firsts. I have his first. Don't have any really thirds. I might, because of this roster, it's Kelsey and there's nothing else. I'm going to send a third for Parkinson, see if I can get that. So I'm going to send a 2026 third of Sure, and then let's go Parkinson. Because I think Parkinson's actually, without Njoku, who's really expensive, I'm just going to go get a cheap guy I can get points of. While I'm dealing with injury and Hawkinson's out, this is just a part-time in the immediate bid with the issues going on with Kelsey. We could do that. You could also, you go get Javon Baker. You do any one of these guys. I don't really care. But the third is also a little bit of a tax for dealing with the issues with Debo. Get out of Parkinson. We'll see if this works out. So we're going to send that off, make a few moves, see if it happens on screen. If it doesn't, it's no worries. But what I'm doing is I'm finding similarly like kind of guys in win now contender mode, so they're willing to take on Debo. Obviously, these win now pieces are a little bit different. With the running backs, it's a little bit more efficient, but wide receivers overall, you kind of understand. So when you're making these type of moves, right, you look in and you're looking at your roster and you're going, all right, what's my roster at? Can I survive the Debo injury? Do I have enough depth? And I look at my roster and I pull it up. And let's go, we'll just sort it through. Right now I have CeeDee Lamb's my wide receiver 1, Mike Evans my wide receiver 2, Tank Dell's the wide receiver 3, Debo's are hurt right now. Then we got a couple other guys. Keenan Allen's also hurt. Adam Thielen, Demarcus Robinson's a guy who I can plug and play. In the meantime, we got Dorks. We have enough pieces where it's not that worrisome moving off of Debo, even though he's a few years younger than Adams. I don't really care about that. What I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to get a guy that's healthy to kind of push me through while I deal with this Debo issue. Because as fun as the Jerome Ford stuff is, you see I got Jordan Mason in the Superflex because of the issues going on with Kirk Cousins. This roster is a little strange of how it's been built. It's like we have Patty Mahomes. We could make a deal for Mahomes and do something fun with this roster, and I think we might actually try to do that. So let's look at the trade block here. Don't want Watson. Watson's a guy I traded this guy for a first plus with Olave, I think, a year and a half ago. That one's worked out. I'm going to try to get Darnold on this roster. I don't know how we're going to go about doing this, but this is the Yinzer team. So let's go look at Darnold. I mean, you could do a second. I'm going to offer a second to him. I don't know if he's going to take it, but we'll see. So let's go, because I think Darnold's very well worth a second. And on my roster, I think it actually makes a ton of sense, because if we lose Cousins, if we lose Mahomes for an injury, we're really strenuous with this roster. So we're also going to do that move. So 2026 second, see if he wants it, and go for it. So send that off to Yinzer for Darnold. We'll see how that works out. It might work, it might not. But that's kind of what I'm doing with this roster, because I kind of want to insulate it a little bit. We're thin at quarterback, as you can tell. That's why Mason's in there. But this was the joy of picking up Mason everywhere. And as you can see, I have Hawkinson. I have Brooks, 2 guys that are coming off late down the stretch. It's just, that's how this roster is looking for the meantime. So we're kind of looking for guys that can just get me through to the playoffs. So let's share this tab instead. Let's go back to my portfolio. So you can look up trade database. You can do all that fun stuff. But let's pull this portfolio back up. There's Jonathan Brooks. Derrick Henry's right there. We offered him. I wonder who else we could sell Derrick Henry to. That'd be very interesting. We have a good amount of Nikos here and a good amount of Mark Andrews. Overall, the tight end position, like it's rough. Like I think the only two guys you can really count on, like which I talked about earlier, Trey McBride right now. He has minimal competition. It's him. It's Marvin Harrison Jr. I know people like Dortch. I know people like Michael Wilson, but let's be real. They're like bit part players. They're not real-time threats to either one of these players. And this is why Brock Bowers is so interesting, even though his quarterback play is league average at best. I think that's a nice way of putting it with Minshew. He's showing his talent. I think the best way of phrasing Brock Bowers is he's what we want Kyle Pitts to be. Like that's who we envision Kyle Pitts to be. Started out well his rookie year, and then it just hasn't worked out due to injuries, whatever else is going on situation in Atlanta. Even though Arthur Smith is still gone, we're still seeing these issues with Kyle Pitts and Drake London in that situation. So sometimes we kind of over project with these young players who've shown a little bit. And I think to flip it on to Drake London for perhaps like we saw last year, his numbers kind of tank a little bit where he dropped down to, I think it was 23% target share from 29 as like his rookie season. That's a pretty mental drop. And I get it. They threw more and all those things, but those are kind of like, you have to make those mental notes and watch that and see like, is that more of the player he is, or is he more of the player we thought we was rookie? And it's looking like with Drake London, he's more of former not the latter, where, he's kind of an in-between player. But overall, with these teams and my teams that are contending, I just want to get guys that give me the best shot at getting that bye on these contending teams, because we've talked about this immensely on Dynasty. Like a bye is so crucial because the more games you play, the more chances you have to lose. It's that simple, right? If your teams are borderline, if you're in the same realm of points, like projections like 152 to 155, that's basically a coin flip bet each week, right? And sometimes injuries, sometimes variance happens. But if you lock up that bye week, so that's what these thirds and some of these second round draft extra picks that you have, that's what they're for, right? They give you these gateways to kind of prolong into those situations. So I don't mind sending the draft capital for. Obviously, I'm not sending a first for any one of these guys. I would not send a first for Devontae Adams. Like I wouldn't even send a first for Debo anymore, just based on the issues and how he's getting older. He's past his, like he's coming out of his peak age, right? So these are kind of the issues. So with some of these players in Dynasty, you kind of have to understand how the market views them, what it's going to look like for them in the future, and where you go from there. So the other Derrick Henry share I wanted to pull up. So let's pull this one back up. All right. So as you see on the roster right here, we got league winners. That's another one I'm going to try to move Derrick Henry in. I'm just trying to offload one or two Derrick Henry shares. I don't mind holding on to shares, but I just have too much Derrick Henry in this roster. Obviously, he was really cheap where I got him for well below market value. So I didn't mind buying into Derrick Henry, but I don't want to have such heavily rostership on some of these players because usually my threshold is more than likely 30%. And so if anybody gets above that, that means they were below market value and they were just a good deal. So I kind of took that. Now with the Dynasty Lounge Campus Canton League and the Dynasty Lounge Devi, these two teams, both my teams are top half of the league. They're like their top two and like win now builds. I don't mind it. FF Beard Club on the ring chap in that one. The league winners team, I think I lost that league last year. So let's pull up league winners. And we'll actually pull it up on the Dynasty Portfolio. So let's go power rankings. Let's go to league winners. Where is it?
Dad,
Hey, babe, what's up?
I got more apples.
Okay, phone's out there. You can go get your phone from mom. Okay? Okay. Go get your phone. Sorry about that. That's my daughter. We made a bet where we said with her, like, hey, finish your apples, you get a phone. So she's like, ooh. Let's pull this back up really quick. All right. So back on to the portfolio. This is why I like it. It gives you an unbiased just look at teams across the league. As you can see right here, this is my team on the top right. Have a good amount of draft capital. We're pretty stocked. We're pretty heavy at running back with this league. It's obviously a 10-team league, so it's a little bit different. But as you see here, we got Bijan, we have James Conner, Derrick Henry, Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears. I have no need for Derrick Henry on this roster. So what I'm going to look for is a way to pivot off Derrick Henry. Easy way to do that. Go find a team that needs a running back. There's rebuilding. Dietz, Mikey Cavano, Freshie's an interesting team. He's got Walker, who's also hurt. He's got ETN. He could use one of these guys. Is there a guy who I can pivot off of him? I can pivot into Debo. I don't really want to do that. Terry McLaurin is not a great bet. He's got. I think I'm gonna send him out for the 2 seconds. This is what I'm gonna send Derrick Henry out for on this team. So let's go make that move. X Freshie, league winners. We're gonna show this tab. Trade. There's that Heat trade I sent out and had no luck with that. All right, so where's X Freshie? Let's see if I can make this move. Do that. So they have 2 seconds. I'm just gonna try to take 2 seconds for Henry. The second, add, get the other draft pick, add, and I will send you Derrick Henry. We'll see how this goes. Send that out. I'm curious who actually liked Derrick Henry because this is the hard part. I can't tell who liked him. I think you should be able to tell in trade. So let's see. It's not gonna tell me on this, is it? Hoser. All right, so let's go talk to Dynasty Hoser since he's the one who actually liked him. I cannot get Alvin Kamara, but I wonder if I can flip him in a second, or if I can combine one of my wide receivers here who's like, nah, it's gonna be tough to do that. I could do it. I mean, I don't mind sending Lab McConkey in this league or JSN, but I want something back if I send JSN or Lab McConkey. So if I do Henry and Lad for Kamara, and I'll put something together here. So let's go this way. So he's got Kamara. He's also the contending team. So let's go here. So I'll do Henry. I'll do Lad. And then let's flip. Where's Lad at? Because in this 10-team league, and we're not starting a lot of players, as fun as Lab McConkey is, it's really difficult for him to ever turn into the truly difference-making player, right? So we'll see how that goes. But pretty sad tight end. I'm trying to look. Maybe I flip for... Yeah, he's not going to do that. He doesn't have an extra second. Hawkinson, no. I sent him Hawkinson straight up for Rice in the offseason. That one worked really well. Let's see if I can get like a kind of a dart throw running back. Maybe Bucky? We could try Bucky. Let's try and see what he says. I don't know if it's going to work. Let's actually go Brian Robinson, who's also a deal. I sent that out too. So I don't have very many Brian Robinson shares. I don't mind doing that. We'll see what he says because I'm looking at his wide receiver core. It's not great. Cortland Sutton, who by the way, leads the NFL in falling well below his expected points per game. So nobody has a lower points per game than their expected points per game. Cortland Sutton, it's like negative 24. It's just that Broncos offense is rough. But in this league, like these guys are extremely replaceable. These RB2s in this, you could find these guys anywhere. Just go to the cheapest in 10-team leagues if you're not going to get the truly elites, because the elites will win you the league. I thought Derrick Henry could potentially be an elite. I am no longer convinced of that at all with Derrick Henry. I think there's real issues with the offensive line in Baltimore. I think that's going to create problems for Henry. I think Henry's still the guy he always has been. If you look at his yards after contact, all that's good. The problem is the yards before contact are rough. So this is kind of the issues of what I'm trying to do. Buying into injured players is fun. There are not really injured players on this roster, so that makes it a little bit harder to do. Actually, I'm just going to send this straight up for Kamara. Like, I think Kamara is a guy you should heavily invest in. And I know what you're thinking. Like, actually, I'll just take a third. We'll do a third here. Yeah, that's fine. We'll go third round pick, add it on to it. So Kamara and a third. I think that's, Henry, basically the tax is Lad McConkey, or you could flip it, Lad McConkey, the tax Henry, however you want to view this. For Alvin Kamara, who's expected well past 20 points per game. I don't mind that in this 10-team league. It might seem steep. I don't think it's that steep. So I'm going to send that to Hoser, see what he says. If I get Kamara on this team, I like my chances a lot because my team is already like looking in really good shape. And you can just sort by overall rank if you want, right? So overall rank, I'm first in overall rank, first in starter rank. My draft capital is not great. Sorry, I meant to show this tab. As you can see, when you do the Dynasty Data Lab Dynasty Daddy, and you go by, overall values, overall rank, my starter rank, in 10-team, it's much more important, right? My wide receiver rank, my tight end room is okay. It's not great. Ferguson's dealing with an injury. Andrews is just a shell of himself. I think Andrews is going to be fine, but I might go send an offer of where I move Andrews into McBride. I might try something similar to that. So let's see. Tight end rank. Let's see what Hoser's got. He's got Laporta, who has Kincaid. He has Kincaid. He's got McBride. He's not going to trade him. Maybe I could do Brock Bowers. I doubt I could do it. I'm going to have to overpay for Brock Bowers. I already know it. Who has him? Rupert has Brock Bowers. That could be an interesting one. He's rebuilding, so he might take that. Yeah, we could try that. I don't know if that's going to work or not. But overall, those are kind of the moves we're sending out. I mean, it's not. I don't feel bad about this team at all. This team's fun. Okay, so we made a few moves on that roster, but as you can see, what I'm doing with these rosters, right, is I'm treating these guys as pieces. I know when you're in like 1 or 2 dynasty leagues in some of my home leagues that I talked to the guys in those leagues, they're talking about how it's much harder for them to pivot off players because you have that connection to the players. You're fully integral, like you're tinkering this roster nonstop. But the amount of leagues I'm in and rosters and the content we produce, like I don't have enough time to tinker with these rosters, so I'm just firing out offers. I'll spend, I won't check it every day, but I'll check it pretty much every day where I go through the rosters. You set lineups, you set it out early, you do your projections, all the fun stuff. And I look kind of where my team stands up and how they stand up against the rest of the league, right? In this league, my team feel pretty good. Like a lot of my contending teams are very heavily slanted where they are up near the top of the league or they are right around it. And I think that's a good way to go about your dynasty rosters. You see right here on the top left, some of these teams over on the bottom right, it's not going so great for those teams because the issue is like they don't have a lot of players. So this guy should be investing heavily in draft capital. And he's got a decent amount, but not a ton. So if you look at Dietz's roster, he's got Kyle Pitts, okay, tight end, like it's kind of issues. He's got Breece Hall. I really think he should move off of Breece Hall. I don't think he's going to is the problem because he's got Breece Hall, he's got Anthony Richardson. Goff's fine. Is like you know what he is. He's back in QB1. That wide receiver room, like you're not winning shit with that wide receiver room. I hate to break it to you. Stephon Diggs is a middling wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 with limited upside just because of his role. Khalil Shakir, Xavier Legette, like it'd be fine if you had a bunch of those guys, but there's really one guy, and that's the issue. The nice thing about it is, too, is you can check out the age. So if you look here, you can check out the average age, and it shows your rank and your age. If we go by overall rank, let's go here. Just kind of mess around, see where my team's at. As you can see, my age, a little bit older, tight end. We're pretty good. We're really good at wide receiver. Like, I like this wide receiver core because I have 2 bookend wide receiver 1s, Nico Collins, Rashee Rice, Brian Thomas, JSN, Cooper Kupp. So when Cooper Kupp comes back from his injury, he'll be back. What I like about this squad is we already have Devontae Adams down here. So I'm getting a projection from Adams. I'm getting a boost from projection from JSN. I have those few speculative bets. So when Cooper Kupp comes back, right, this team is fine. So I don't necessarily need to trade Cooper Kupp away because I don't need it. And this roster, like the whole point we're trading on Derrick Henry is we just don't need him. Like if you have rosters like this, particularly in 10 team, like how often is Henry finding your lineup? Like if he's a flex guy, just send him out for other pieces where you get, draft capital or you do something, because there's so many bets. Like Tony Pollard he's younger than Henry and he's going to give me just so many points. Like that's such an easy swap. And I think it's pretty easy to do with Tony Pollard because if you look at week rankings, like Tony Pollard is like running back 30 each week. And you look at his point total and you're like, I don't know, man. He's a lot closer to Derrick Henry than that. So it's pretty interesting. James Conner, who also has the same basically dynasty value according to Q Trade Cut. You could see though, like I am much, much, much more into James Conner than I am Derrick Henry because like I don't care about the age difference. I don't care about any of that. It's just about production win now. So with the running backs with a short window, I don't think we should care too much. So if a guy is injured, if we talk about Pacheco, which I don't actually know if I have any Pacheco shares, I want to look and see if I do because that would be actually a fun one to run us through. I'm not sure if I do though, but we'll see. I think I either need to. I'm gonna see with this roster. So I think a good idea with this is actually send him for Pacheco. So let's go back to this, share this tab instead. We're at league winners. So let's go find Pacheco. Where is he? Let's go start. Get out of here, Fancy Pros. And yeah, you could league Fancy Pros if you want. Pacheco is on Couch Scouts. So since he has Pacheco and he's out for the year, I'm going to send him Derrick Henry. We'll see how that goes. I don't know if he's going to do it, but this is an easy way to get out of Derrick Henry. I get a guy who could come back. The issue is like he's not playing, so it's a little bit worrisome in that Kansas City offense, but I could use him for the stretch run. I just don't really see Henry as being the difference making producer anymore. So I don't mind doing that. I kind of want to get a little bonus of like a third or something, but I don't think he's going to send it. He might just turn it down too. So this is interesting because this guy, him, Matt Cooper, he has his own YouTube and he's a lot more focused on the younger players than I am. So I'll send this out to him. I'm not sure if he's going to do it or not, but it's an interesting trade to make. So send a few offers out in this league. We'll see what happens of it. But my whole thought process is with this is finding the most efficient and best way to manage your rosters through these injuries, right? Because case in point, particularly if you're like overexposed to a player like I am with Derrick Henry, right? So that's an easy way to pivot off of an older aging vet who most people still view as a guy that can give them RB1 production. I'm not there anymore with Henry. I think he's more of an RB2 at this point. Who's going to have some boom bust weeks? Like the Raiders game was really eye-opening because that was the game Henry was supposed to smash. They were heavy favorites in that game going against the Raiders defense, and that line had massive problems. And that's I think that's going to be a thing with Henry. Now, it can get better for Henry. The line can fix the issues. The Ravens have had some of the best blocking the past half decade with Lamar, so I understand it. But the issue with Henry is if the production's not there, the value, like that's why he's so cheap right now. That's why he's in the Tony Pollard range, James Conner. And if I could pivot off of Derrick Henry into a James Conner, I think that's a smash. Obviously, I think it's a little bit harder. The one thing is maybe people are still holding on to Trey McBride, so you could do that. I don't know if you can, but overall, that's kind of is what it is. Now, if you want to look at trade database, you could do that. So let's share this tab again, pull this back up. If you're curious what players are going for, so you just want to look at overall trades, what's nice about you can do this at Start Borgo Trade Database. So this shows you all of the trending players. There have been search almost 2 million fantasy football trades from 304,000 leagues. You can see the players that are trending exclusively. It's Jordan Mason by a landslide. So look at these trades for Jordan Mason. We got Kirk Cousins in the second, for Jordan Mason in the second. So if you want to get out from Jordan Mason and you're trying to get out, you can do the Kirk Cousins experience. I don't know why someone would be buying a Christian Kirk for him, but we're looking at the trades on these players. I'm trying to see if there's any injured players in here because I think this would be really helpful. So Dalton Kincaid, that's a very cheap Dalton Kincaid. Interesting. Jordan Mason for a second. Seeing Jordan Mason for Jalen Warren a third. No, thank you. The interesting thing with Jordan Mason is that if he's playing, which he's going to be for the next eight weeks, give or take, with CMC out, like he's an RB1. And I don't know how valuable that is to you, but he's a borderline like worth a first round pick. So I don't know why I'd be sending him for Jalen Warren in a third, because Jalen Warren is in a not great offense, would be nice to say. Arthur Smith is doing a good job managing that team to win, but for fantasy production with Justin Fields, where that offense just is not doing much of anything, it's really George Pickens. And you can make the case for Najee Harris because he's getting more work, but man, like even last week, they split stuff down the middle again, and that's a nightmare. I know we were excited for it because Arthur Smith's good, draws up good running plays, stuff like that, but like I don't know what Jalen Warren does for you, right? Like if you're starting Jalen Warren, I don't think you're in a good spot as a team because you should not be having to rely on him. Now, you can make the case for him if you're bullish on him because I get it, like he's an efficiency metrics, all that fun stuff. But at the end of the day, it's production, particularly at running back. It's far more valuable than wide receiver, right? So that's kind of what I wanted to go over this week with some of our trades. So I hope this kind of helps you guys understand my process, where if you have running backs in particular, and you could look at the war tool if you want, and we could talk about that for 1 sec. So I think the interesting thing to look about with the war tool, based on league settings, right? So this will be fun to look at. Well, this actually goes for this year, isn't it? Yeah. So you could see for last year, the guys that had the biggest impact in this league, particularly because it's 10-team league, guys like Christian McCaffrey, CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, these guys are league breakers, where if you had multiple of these guys, so last year I had Josh Allen, Dak Prescott on this team, and yeah, it worked really well. Those guys were dominating QB's position. Now, it's interesting, like Kyron Williams is right up there. You can go on a points per game basis, but you go down a ways and you'll find some of these like really super valuable players. Like look at Alvin Kamara's down here, Russell Wilson's down here, right? These guys that Alvin Kamara this year is more of a league breaker, but last year, like he wasn't doing much of anything for you. And you can find Justin Herbert, who this year is just, he's been rough for Justin Herbert. So it kind of gives you a good value on the players, because if you're doing the status, like it's 10 team, we're only starting to go over 100 players in this league. So you kind of do the war by each position. You could find out, all right, there's like 24 running backs, that are valuable, 24 wide receivers until you get into the flex. So you can kind of find the cutoff point. Like Olave's 18th. There's Calvin Ridley. Cooper Kupp's 27th. So he was a suboptimal player. You could kind of find the cutoff point of like where the lines on each league in each position merge. So like, where is it more efficient to start, Adam Thielen over Jerome Ford? And yeah, he's wide receiver 21. He's running back 21. You see the difference in the value and how that kind of changes. Now it's interesting. You see Justin Fields and the wide receivers kind of overlap. That's where quarterbacks become more valuable until we get to the truly elite, the Tyreek, the CMCs of the world. You can see the difference. Like Kyron to CMC is just absurd. CMC was a quote unquote league breaker, but it's a good way to look at it. I know I'm a little going off tangent. Sorry, we're all over the place today. But going through these rosters and showing you guys our personal favorite ways, or my personal favorite way, to go about managing these rosters, dealing with injuries, where you have, issues and you're figuring out your way to survive. And it's all about at running back position, particularly because of how we value the running backs of the age. I kind of want to wrap it up with this. The win now production is incredibly important. I don't care about outside those top four. So outside of Devon Achane, Brees Hall, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Bijan Robinson, those are the four like truly elite value dynasty assets. Everyone else, once we get past four, as I don't feel good about the running back position. They have warts on them, right? So they have issues. Obviously, when Christian McCaffrey comes back, he's going to hold that value. But in the main time holder place, we have Jordan Mason taking his place. You can find similar to production that is cheaper. So if you're holding on to someone such as Kyren Williams, who is valued as top 12 running back in Dynasty, you should probably get out if you're not getting the production, which it looks like you're not going to get from the Rams, where you pivot off, you go, Kyren, you turn him into, straight up for Alvin Kamara, and you take the win now production right now. Or you go for another asset like James Conner. And I think Conner is easier to get a plus on because he's not giving me the production Kamara is. So maybe you get a plus on top of James Conner, you get the production for this year, because I know we love Kyren Williams, but same thing with Isaiah Pacheco. Like, they're not locked in because they're on these dirt cheap rookie contracts. So if the teams want to replace them, they can. And I think it's more likely that happens with Pacheco. But overall, this is how it kind of works. So it gives you good pivot points with these players to move off. And that's what I want to talk about. Just finding ways to move around with injuries. Same thing with Deebo Samuel and Cooper Kupp. Moving off of these guys into similarly valued players who are going to give you that production now while you're not dealing with the injury, because that's the most important part. So if you're hurting and you need that production now, just go flip them like we did with Devontae Adams. And on the flip side, if you want to get younger, I think it's really easy with Adams. Go flip him for a younger player. That's you deal with the injury, like we talked about with Deebo. Or if you're trying to, if you're going to contender to rebuild, there's ways to go around doing this. So overall, there's ways to go about doing that. So I want to thank y'all for stopping by for this nice little dynasty breakdown we did on the Fantasy Lowdown. Come back. We'll be doing our rankings starting tomorrow. We'll be ranking our games Wednesday, Thursday. Then we bleed off into the weekend where we release our rankings each week, and we go for that. So as we get ready for week 3, it already feels like we've been through half the season already, but it's only week 3. So I hope you guys enjoy this. Take care. I'll see y'all next week this time.